Come in. We're doing this again. We were on here earlier today. Bobby Manning and I, along with Jeff Goodman, who had a ton of insight on the obvious top story of the day.
Crazy day for him, huh?
Which was Goodman had a day. Goodman had himself a day.
Wow. I couldn't believe he broke that right after he hopped off with us.
He was like, you could tell he's looking at stuff. He was getting intel on Brad while he was talking to us, and then the Coach K stuff started. He's like, I gotta go, and then he breaks the Coach K story, which was
surprised his head didn't explode, man. I can't think of a busier dude in the business that I know of personally, at least.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to go through this again for the people who missed the earlier. We had a ton of people on with us early. If you missed it, great. Here's a chance to jump back on with us here on YouTube. We're going to hang for a little bit. Then we're going to do a little locker room, and we're going to wrap it up here, for the day. But the top story again, Danny Ainge. Look, you guys want to change?
Yeah, seriously.
You got it.
Right.
But in a strange way, Danny Ainge steps down. Brad Stevens is named the president of basketball operations, which literally nobody was predicting this would be the outcome. People thought Danny might go. People thought Brad might go. People thought there might be a clean sweep. This is kind of a clean sweep because at the end of the day, the Celtics do next year have a new president of basketball operations and a new head coach. But it's a weird way that they got here. So Bobby and I talked a lot about it earlier. So Josue, let's get your take first. Just kind of your initial reaction as the day's gone on. Has your opinion changed at all? And Bobby, I'm curious if yours has as well, because we were both kind of dumbfounded in the early stages, like trying to process and coming through and then talking to Jeff and, starting to kind of formulate our thoughts. And I'm pretty firm where I am now, but Josue, I want to hear where you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of the same. I mean, obviously I've had some time to, think it over. When you consider what Brad Stevens is going to be in his position to do, it makes sense. But I just can't help but wonder if Brad's sort of like, it's bittersweet, right? This wasn't his dream. His dream is to coach in the NBA and be successful. And he was successful, but of course, he had his dream to reach the mountaintop, of course, fell short. And will Brad Stevens coach again in the NBA? Possibly, maybe. But at least right now, we know where his focus is, because I don't think he would sign on if he couldn't see himself focused on the job. So I think it's bittersweet, but I don't hate it. I like Brad in this position. I like him being in the spot to assess talent and being able to pull the trigger on trades. I should say this, with him being underneath Danny for so long, I can't help but wonder, or at least think that he's picked up a lot of that. He just seems sort of like that guy. If he spends enough time with Danny Ainge, he's like a sponge, right? It'll just come naturally. And this isn't like they've worked together for 3 or 4 seasons now. This is almost a decade. So I think that's, if you're a Celtics fan, you have to feel good about that, right? Because obviously he's been through it. He knows this team, and I think he will know the personality of it. And I also have to believe that guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown had to agree on this, or at least sign off on it.
But I don't think so.
You don't think they did?
Well, the reports we've
not
heard,
signed off, but they had to have known about it. No.
The reports we're hearing is it was nobody had a clue, and then last night, dribble, drab, a little started to leak out, and people started to catch wind of what was going on. And right now, and I know Shams was on, I saw him on NBC earlier tonight, and what he said was players aren't quite sure yet how to react, because Brad's a guy who's like, he knows them intimately. He's, they've grown up with him. A coach is like a father figure. You're there daily. They're working you through your personal stuff. They're helping you grow. They get to know you on a much more intimate level than a GM. And now this guy's making like cutthroat decisions about your future and telling you what you're worth and what you're not worth. It's a really different dynamic. So is it strange? We've yet to hear. And again,
but John, you think?
Let me ask you: have you heard of?
We had a silly Tatum tweet
about Evan Turner,
the Evan Turner thing. Yeah,
have we heard either? Wow, Danny, what a run! And thanks for everything. Or the guy who drafted me, I'll always be grateful.
Right.
I don't have one of those yet. I don't. Maybe they're out there, and I missed it. I haven't seen it, nor have I seen. nor have we seen a wow, Brad as the head guy hit it out of the park. Now, it's possible people are reserving comment out of deference and respect for Ainge, who may or may not have been kicked to the curb. The narrative right now is that he chose to go and that the Celtics talked about this, and I'm pretty dubious about this whole timeline too, and I'll get into my thoughts on that.
Especially when you think about Jason's reaction to that topic, I don't have anything to do with that kind of decision making. That's not in my job description. I just felt like he was a little defensive because he probably saw this coming, or at least Danny Ainge may have confided in him that, or not confided in him, but asked him about what they think of Brad Stevens. I just think the conversation had to have also been, is everyone in this core done with Brad, or at least would they hate it if he's not back as your coach next season? And you'd have to think that the answer was clear, that they were ready to move on.
They might be, but Bobby, what's your take here? The radio silence worries me a little because I just think they might not know what to think yet. They're still processing it, but so it's a little bit of shock. Like, I didn't see this coming, so I don't know how to react. Yeah,
I'm still GM Brad Stevens. That never crossed anybody's mind, and it still feels, I don't want to say silly, because obviously Brad's a basketball mind, and I do think there's a chance that he could do well in this role, but he's a coach. I mean, this guy is one of the best coaches in the league, and he's moving to this GM spot where I think it's less than certain he's going to be long term, and I ultimately want Danny Ainge's successor to be in it for the long haul. And there is so much demand for Stevens as a coach that we know of. Jeff saying all year he could coach a different NBA team in a second. And we know the desire at the college level that there would be for him. I can't imagine. And again, someone told me earlier, Danny Ainge became GM at 44. Ainge was in a much different spot in his coaching career than Brad was at this point. And I know Brad was under some heat, but we all knew that the trust in Stevens as a head coach was high enough where he would instantly have another job here. So the second that he gets that itch to jump back into coaching, does he try to step back into the role here? Does he start looking at other opportunities elsewhere? I guess the fact that he's locked in for these amount of years here makes it a little bit easier for him to lay the groundwork for the future. But ultimately, I think it's an awkward transition. Like, unless this really is just something that he got into, got pitched on, and loved, but I can't imagine it because we know how much Brad loves coaching. I mean, this guy's been coaching for his whole adult life. Like, he stepped right into it out of college, thrived at Butler, thrived with the Celtics, and now a couple rough years and he's done with it. Yeah. Like, it's just, I'm just so doubtful of that, and I think it's just such a weird situation, and the motives there seem very dubious to me with the contract and everything else and the money involved.
And that's the thing. So let's, it's when we went live, I mean, it was soon after the announcement, and we had Jeff on, and Jeff's first reaction was, because Jeff knows Danny. Obviously, Jeff spends most of his time, covering college sports. So he gets to know these guys, and he has a relationship with Brad. And, as far as he knows, this is not something Brad has necessarily ever aspired to. He's a coaching guy, and second, a family man. Acknowledging that definitely there was some stress in the job this year, and he was a little bit fried. But his first thought was, this smells like money, that he's got a lot of years left on a deal. And this is, you bring in another GM and they might want a different coach, and which means you've got to eat $30 million or whatever, in addition to whatever you may or may not have to go into the tax this year. And Wick's like, I'm not spending an extra $100 million this year just to put a non-contending team on the court with a new GM, a new coach, and all these players that we're going to have to pay to put ourselves in the luxury tax. Like, I'm not footing that bill. We're going to go with the bargain approach. We've got Brad here. He's smart. He'll figure it out.
Well, it's also, and that's a big part of it, but there's also that they're familiar with Brad, and I don't think they're exactly thinking to themselves, well, we don't trust this guy's mind anymore. No, they're like, that's a valuable asset, and we just paid a whole lot of money for that. So one way or another, let's use this thing and let's see if he can put a team together. Yeah. And I don't think Danny Ainge would be I mean, actually, that's not true. I was gonna say if he had doubt in Brad, he wouldn't be pumping him up. That's not necessarily true, but I think it's genuine though. I really do think it is genuine. He's been underneath his, I don't want to say underneath his wing, but I think he obviously used Brad as a valuable resource throughout Brad's entire coaching tenure here in Boston. So I think between that and ownership, having faith in Brad and his mind, I think it's a no. I mean. Well, how do you see him getting bored with it, John? Is that what you're getting at? Like, do you think eventually he's going to say, "You know what? No, I'm a coach. I'm a coach doing something that I shouldn't be doing." I do think he eventually returns to coaching, but I don't know if that's going to be in a year or two. Like,
that's the thing. No, when you move to this role, that's because that's what you've moved to as your next career move in life. Right. I've done the coaching thing. I'm done with the grind. That's tough. Right. I'm here. I'm on the road. That's tough. I'm going to do this instead. And also, I want to be the guy who makes the decisions. I've been in the trenches. Now I want to build a team. That becomes the next thing that you want to do. I don't know that you go backwards unless you never wanted to do the other thing in the first place. So that's what it's going to come down to. If Brad's heart is in coaching and he's just if this is a take it or leave it thing, we have you under contract. We can basically tell you what your job is going to be. So your job is now GM and that's it, right? You're an employee of the Celtics. I'm now kicking you upstairs. And right. He's like, okay, I guess his other option would be to resign, and then you don't have to pay the money, and that would have been fine too. Otherwise, we're going to put you over there. Is that cool? And he's like, yep, I'm here to do what's best for the Celtics. That, and that was his line. Let's bring in our president, and CEO.
Oh, we can't hear him.
I thought I got fired today. I thought I got fired today.
There's no truth to the rumors that I have taken over for Nick Gelso, running CLNS.
That nicotine rush, huh? There you go, Nick.
I started those rumors. Look how big my head looks. My head looks like Kyle Draper's right now. It's so big in this screen, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Nick, this was
that entrance was out of a fucking sitcom. I'm sorry, that was hilarious.
Let's bring in Nick.
It's just
let me tell you about that moment.
Let me tell you a thing or two.
What a day,
Nick.
Oh man,
I talked to you about this a little bit earlier, but this is the most shocking day in my time covering the team by far. I mean, there wasn't even a thought that this was a possibility. I think someone just tossed this out in the locker room as a joke, and we were like, "Yeah, Brad is GM. All right." I can't believe it.
Nah, Bobby, I'm with you. I think I wanted to see changes for sure, but this is a tough one because it's. If you watch body language during that press conference today, Bobby, we were talking.
That's what I was saying.
Dude, I mean, I'm going to tell you, and twice Wick stepped on top of Brad answering questions. Twice. One was about Coach GM. I don't remember the other one. To me, it just felt very forced. The body language. I tend to always look at, people who aren't speaking to see what their body language looks like. It's just very awkward.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the same court as Jeff Goodman. I feel like it's forced. And, I mean, let's face it. I like Brad, but his wife negotiates his contracts. I mean, how many contracts has Brad negotiated? It's scary a little bit.
Yeah.
I love the idea.
I mean, they made that joke during the press conference. What's that?
I love the idea of Chauncey. I love Kara Lawson. I think that is it's a great PR move, but she also got along very well with the players.
I honestly love that. I think she would be right now. She's one of I consider her a top candidate for sure. I mean, just because of that familiarity with the team, and man, some of these players they were shedding tears when she left. They were happy for her. For obviously that's a huge job to for her to be hired. They weren't surprised by it, but it was bittersweet. They wanted her to obviously stick around. I just wish she went to the bubble. I think that would have been a significant connection. That would have even made it stronger, that bond. That's unfortunate, but either way, I just think they could really empower this team because they believe in her, especially the the two superstars who we want to not only see the best version of themselves, but make the team its best version of itself, right? Like those two, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I mean,
that phrase is done, Josue.
She could, be the.
I wonder what the next
bridge
coach's
the gap
catchphrase
between those two. Bridge the gap finally.
We need a new catchphrase.
It's another barrier broken by the Celtics. I think that would look really good right now, coming from everything that's just gone on the last couple of weeks. I don't think you use it as a. Please don't say Zarin. I don't think you use it as the reason why. I think she's qualified, and I think about the story that Josue Max tells. Right, when he dropped the mic, she stood right up to him. Right, she's like, "Does Olympic and WNBA championships count?" Right, so I mean. I think I just love that idea. I really do. I like Chauncey too. Mark Jackson.
Neck and neck for me.
Nightmares.
I don't care who the coach is. I just want them to like it. Like now, you've got.
Know.
But that's the point. That's all I care about. Right now, you got players who don't know what to think. So what I want to make sure is and again, I'm going to cross sports, reference here is go back to the 2011 Red Sox. Ownership jumped in, forced Bobby Valentine into the mix, and they're like, that's who we want, an established old school baseball guy. And the players were like, what the is that, and it was, that is the biggest.
There was a funny Photoshop today of Valentine on the Celtics stage.
That's the biggest. That is the biggest clown show in anything I've covered in my life. In all four sports spanning 20-something years. That year was freaking hilarious. It was such a gong show, start to finish. So obviously you don't want that, but really you just want the players to be happy now, because what you don't want is uncertainty. You don't want them to feel like they weren't part of a decision. You don't want them to feel on board. So I don't care who the coach is. I hate saying this, but I just want Tatum and Brown to like them, and that's it. And whichever one they like, that's great. Unless it's the worst kid, unless it's Jason Kidd, in which case you get one veto. Okay.
Well, I think that bodes well
Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson.
I honestly think that bodes well for Carol also because Jaylen Brown, Jason Tate, especially Jaylen. I mean, that's obviously would be an historic hire, and if they're able to pull off winning a championship with her as head coach, I think that would mean a lot to not only her but the entire team. I mean, I honestly think it would be a powerful move, obviously, for the Celtics to make. And I think they would have the support of the players for sure. That's a big reason why I think they would, that would work.
I think they would too. I mean, she was very popular, and what you look at though, I find it to be kind of shocking. Celtics fans, even the young ones, they all want to hire from within. KG ain't doing this. I don't know who just texted me the screenshot, but he said no.
Well, Billups, I know Billups wasn't a Celtic really because he just got shipped right out, but it's also cool that could kind of be, bringing it full circle a little bit. You didn't get to be a player here, and now you get to start again as a coach. He's deserving. He's been interested in it. Obviously, he was a candidate for the Cavaliers GM job. He's a trusted basketball mind. And when Brad talked today about new perspective, I thought that was a great thing that he said that I want a guy who's similar to me but brings in new perspective at the same time.
Well, here's a clip on Brad saying why it's better that he's not the coach.
My number one thing is for the good of the Celtics. I love the Celtics. I want to do what's best for the Celtics.
Yeah, this
was I really have enjoyed coaching. I loved coaching, and I've loved coaching the players both at Butler and here. But this is the new challenge, and this is what we need to do to hopefully be even better. And, again, I think a big part of that is hopefully I can use my experience as a coach to help not only find a coach, but be a good, supportive, empowering person like Danny has been to me of a coach.
I guess just to follow up really quick on that, Brad, why is it better for the Celtics for you to be the president of basketball operations as opposed to the head coach?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that I'm passionate about this group of people. I'm passionate about the team that we have. I'm passionate about the people that work in our front office. I'm passionate about our coaching staff, and that's who I've spent all morning with. The people in our sports performance staff. I'm passionate about the whole thing, and I do think that I've got a good insight to our team as Danny now steps away. And so I feel like I've got a good idea about what we do well, what we don't do as well. And I also think, I've been doing this for 8 years. I've been in that locker room with some of those guys for a long time. And they're going to get to play for a great coach with, some similarities maybe, but also some great new fresh perspectives. And I think that that's a good thing. And so I'm looking forward to finding that person, because I do think like people can be reinvigorated.
Yeah,
man. Yeah, I was watching that.
Yeah. He said people could be invigorated by that. And there goes John.
Yeah.
John,
we
we
lost
can't
John.
hear you, John. Come on, man. Jeez.
First
There
of
we
all,
go.
John,
bit
you're
of a
muted.
bit of a non-answer
Yeah.
on the why are you better? Okay,
Oh,
and sorry,
well,
I was
soccer.
I was muted so you wouldn't hear me during the thing. There was a couple times where
Oh,
Brad.
could you hear me? Because I was making comments.
Yeah, we could hear you. There's a couple times
Okay.
where Brad was
sorry.
stumped in that presser, and that was one where why are they better off? And you ever interview for a job you don't really want, and they're like, "Why do you really want this job?" And you're like, "I'm driven and
Yeah,
passionate."
he took that for a second.
And so that
He
was
said
that.
the Celtics 17 times.
I've been here.
It just looks so weird.
I'm a
For
guy.
itself.
I do basketball. Like that was one, and then the other was basically kind of like, do you want the job? Sort of was one of the questions, and do you want to coach again, or would you have been fine returning as coach? And he was like, absolutely. So like, I'm really struggling to believe that this was Brad's life's goal. I believe, and the way Wick talked about it, this was the other one. I don't know if that's a clip we have or not, Bobby, but it was like, how did this come about? And he was like, I don't know. I was drinking my premium tequila with Brad one day, and I just said, hey, GM, you want to do it? Ha, ha,
So that was
ha.
a weird thing too.
And Brad was like, sure. Like
the whole thing was weird, Bobby.
The whole thing, it was like,
So yeah, I do want to get into that thing Wick said, because ultimately he's kind of the mastermind of this in some way. And they ask him why they're better with Brad as GM rather than coach, and he says that he was born for this, and they've just seen his natural basketball instinct, and they think this is like such a great untapped potential for Brad. And I don't buy that. Like, everything we've known about how the Celtics operated under Ainge and Stevens is that Ainge handled most of the personnel. Stevens would throw in some tips here or there, things he's seen, but ultimately he stayed away from the personnel. And Wick made it seem like Brad was like there with him in the war room day in and day out, like drawing up the DNA of the team. And that's just not true.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, like, it's also kind of weird and shotgun feeling to think that, like, it was just automatically assumed Zarin and Danny's son, Austin, are going to remain with the franchise. I mean, to me, I
was surprised by that,
too. If you look back, yeah, like, even if it's the case, you don't say it right now. Like, and I'm looking back over the occurrences of the last couple months, and I'll tell you what, we laugh about Toucher and Rich because they're friggin' funny, right? But there has been some subtle bombs dropped on that show all season. From Gorman to Danny to Brad, and then Felger and Maz, Wick calling in that day was totally off the cuff. And I just think there's something to do with this Duke situation, too. Like, at the exact same time, Duke, and I always thought Brad would be destined for Duke. At the same time, John, I mean, it was like almost simultaneous. Woj dropped the bomb
Duke's
within an hour.
Duke's filled their position.
Duke's already filled their position.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I think that it almost feels like they were pending, and Brad said, "I'm not going to resign. I'm going to take the money." No, John.
I don't think so. But I'm not going to say no. It just, to me, it was. I believe that if they knew within the last couple of weeks at the very least, they said it's been trickling over the last few months. I think personally, and I'll go over the time.
That?
I'll go over the timeline later. I think this is something that really came about in the last 2 weeks. Personally, that's my belief, and I'll deconstruct it and give you my theories. But anyway, but what I believe is, we said it on the postgame show. If change is happening, it's happening fast because you got to get moving. You want people in place. So you knew if somebody's gone, coaches and GMs get fired after seasons immediately after seasons. 1 day, 2 days. So It was amazing. I mean, this thing was done, which means they knew it for a little bit. So
You predicted, John, you predicted this to a T. As a matter of fact, as the show was wrapping up last night, Max called me on the way home and he said, Ainge is done. I just feel it. I said, because Murray was saying it. Then, John, you say, if Brad or Danny's going, it's happening in 48 hours. He called me today. He goes, how did you know that Danny was going? Because he had no clue. I said, John said it last night, and I just felt it. And like my day had been going so bad, Danny might as well go. So it just fit perfectly. But
it wasn't
true.
that. It was like
it feels shotgun.
You knew they were going fast if they were going, and they did it. I mean, they were ready to pull the trigger here. They had they were press conference release. They knew what they were doing. So I think the timing there doesn't make sense.
The Danny thing's one thing. Whether he was pushed out or retired, he deserved to have like a ceremonious exit here, and I think they did a good job in terms of ushering him out. The Brad thing is, I can't look at the Brad thing any other way than it was a dismissal that they didn't want to actually dismiss. Like if the question that never got answered there is that if this guy is a great coach, if he's the coach for this team, why isn't he coaching this team? Like he might have all the potential for the GM role in the world, but if you like him as a coach, if you still think he's a great coach, you keep him at coach and just find another guy who can be a great GM here. That transition to me is so odd, and it never really got answered today. Was this due to Brad's performance as coach? Did they have enough of him as coach?
Has Brad been fired? Did Brad get fired up?
Both, though, right? I think they all.
So here's the thing, Josue.
Also, not quite sure who to replace Danny with. Why not have someone that's familiar with the team that's not going to be long term?
But Josue, do you believe right now, if you're to believe the Celtics in earnest right now, you're to believe that they think Brad was an excellent coach, but will make an even more excellent GM?
I've never heard anything like that.
So he'll be even better here.
More comfortable. No, they don't believe that, but they're more comfortable with him at the helm and him getting together with because he's familiar with the roster. What do you mean? Why wouldn't he? Because
so am I. Bobby's familiar with the roster. Like that doesn't mean anything.
Josue, I gotta tell you,
Wick liked how he looked when he was walking through the war room.
Most of this season, I've listened to Josue and thought, man, he's spot on this one. I got to think you're off. I don't think that has anything to do with it, knowing the roster. I mean, the roster
that they wanted to replace. That they didn't want to replace the head coach. That they're just doing this because they didn't know how else to replace Danny. I don't understand what are you trying to say?
No, I don't think it was that they don't know how to replace Danny. Yes. They couldn't eat 5 years of Brad.
They fired both guys, but used Brad to be the GM because they're paying him already, basically. So they wanted a new GM and a new coach. Here's what you don't know.
And he turned down Indiana.
Yeah, but you guys making it sound like this is like an awful call or awful play. Like,
I do not believe.
No, I think it could work.
Why do you guys make it sound like? It doesn't sound like it. You guys are like, oh, they were back in the corner, and this is a convenient, costly move. I agree with that. Obviously, you're not gonna. You just gave the guy an extension, but at the same time, this is also beneficial. That
I cannot see a world in which, at the very least,
you feel comfortable. It's a safer move.
Josue, I can't. I don't think the Celtics were.
I don't think they felt comfortable replacing the GM and the coach at the exact same time. I don't think they were going to do that.
It makes no sense to not interview people for the position. None. Zero. Even if you think Brad is the guy, it's insane to have this job at this juncture in time and not say, who could we get? The world is wide open. If you truly wanted the best possible, you could open this up to the world right now and talk to people, and you might see things. If you really cared and really wanted it, you would talk to people. And then if you still thought Brad was the guy, you hire him. Shoving Brad into this role smells to me like reassignment,
Yeah, I see what you're saying now. No.
So that's my thought. That does not compute.
You're not You're not considering the fact
they didn't thoroughly go through
how much money for the Indiana job.
Yeah.
No one's
I just thought you guys were trying to say he's doomed to
Brad
fail.
turned
Like
down
that's what I didn't
tons
understand.
of
Like
money
I
for the
feel like
Indiana job.
I just thought you guys were saying that he's doomed to fail.
I'm not saying he's doomed to fail. I'm saying it's a convenient slide in, and I think part of it has to do with money. Part of it has to do with continuity. Part of it has to do with moving on the fly. Part of it might also have to do with they really wanted a new coach too. So it is in effect almost firing two guys, but hiring one of the fired guys for a better job, which we've never seen before.
Yeah, unimaginable.
That's such a weird
and
thing.
I could guarantee you.
And we're jumping to some
they did not
conclusions
fire
here.
Danny Ainge.
You don't think
we're
so?
jumping to a lot.
And you know what?
So the question is, and
I mean, to me, it's like, listen.
Forsberg said this earlier, Nick. Would Ainge be back if they had a great year? Like if they lost in the East Finals or made the final, he'd be back. So this probably accelerated a decision he's been thinking about for some time here. And again, whether he was pushed out or whether he retired and he's done here, that's a fair question. Although they asked him about his future today, and he really wouldn't answer if he's done
going
for
to
good.
Utah. He copped out on that question. He said he has no plans, but you never know what the future holds. Maybe he'll become he'll take Scal's role and become the color guy on TV. Truth of the matter is, and Bobby, I don't think that I think that the one thing we have to remember, I don't know if I have a delay or what, but Brad turned down all that money at Indiana for a reason. So maybe they did know. Maybe he's saying to them, F you, I'm not resigning because you let me turn down that job.
I believe
we're all speculating.
I believe Jeff's saying that he just doesn't want to deal with the college stuff because, again, that's 12 months out of the year.
Yeah,
recruiting, absolute grind.
And again,
even for that money,
I know people in this chat were saying they talked to Presti. I saw that report too. They did not talk to Presti. A report was out there that they internally considered possibly pursuing other candidates before settling on Brad, which means
that's what Wick said today. Yeah.
Which means I thought about ordering something else, but I ordered this sandwich instead. Like they didn't, they didn't like. I thought about getting a steak and cheese, but I got the meatball. Like,
damn, John. Yeah, but John, come on, man. Like, this is a temporary fix, so
they didn't. There's a difference.
Why do you make a temporary fix?
Positions open up. Guys want a new job. Like, they didn't want to just hire someone and thrust them into this quote unquote mess because it's kind of what it is, right?
Brad's a hostage right now.
Go through this mess and be like,
Danny, what did you do?
You know what I mean?
Hostage today.
Brad's a hostage right now. He wants to coach.
He looked like a hostage.
But Brad Stevens is ideal for this mess. Okay, everything is all tangled into one big freaking. And at least Brad knows a couple of spots where to start to try to unravel this thing and try to get it neat again. And
yeah. I'm going to say this.
See what does Jalen and Tatum.
Go ahead, John.
Does Jalen and Tatum want to bring in? Like they could all brainstorm here and just try to fix this roster. Like that's at the end of the day, that's the goal of this off season for sure. But yeah, it's a temporary fix. It's a temporary. Fix.
I am glad Josue is somewhat positive. Because when we lost Bobby earlier today, I was like, "This is going to be a terrible show."
I'm worried. I'm worried about this situation. I really am.
I gotta be honest with you.
Bobby,
Bobby. I'm gonna.
What was your reaction when you looked at your phone, man?
Hold on, guys. Too many. Sorry, Josue, what's up?
No, I'll say.
Am I delayed?
Someone's delayed.
Josue's glitchy a little bit.
Reaction when you first looked at your phone? Yo, ever since. I don't know. Not to target Nick, but ever since he came on here, man, I've been glitchy. Ever since he hopped on here.
Always gonna blame Nick.
It's me.
I'm
not in Brockton, bro.
We didn't even hit on the most awkward part of this, and what's gonna be the most difficult.
I haven't been Brocktoning in a while, bro.
The most difficult part of this is the fact that Brad has a whole staff here, guys who are up for this job, apparently. Jerome Allen, Jay Larinaga is the betting favorite to become the next Celtics coach for some reason or another here. And they hadn't even told the players, not the players, the coaching staff that Brad was making this move until this afternoon. So that's a difficult situation for me. Brad is in control of the next coach here. He has a whole staff of people that he's to some degree indebted to, would like to have around, I'm sure, likes what they bring to the table. and he's going to make a decision. If he's going to bring in a new coach, I can't imagine that new coach is going to want to keep all these Brad guys alongside him. He's going to want his own staff.
Yeah,
and he also could just make Jay Larinaga head coach or Jerome Allen head coach. I don't think any of us would love that. It's the same thing.
So the question comes down to this. If Brad is in it for the long haul, then he's going to do an exhaustive search, has to get a coach. That coach has to have his own staff and all of Brad's existing staff. I'm sorry, thanks, but I'll see you later. Maybe someone can be retained, but for the most part, that's what you got to do. If Brad is in here as a placeholder to hold the seat warm for now, and they're gonna. Then they hire Jerome Allen or Larinaga, and they continue on with the continuity. And Danny does the Bill Parcells thing where he sits up on high and he kind of sort of still GMs. He's Don Corleone first handling it to Michael. He'll be the consigliere in the beginning, not fully going away, but he'll still be there. He'll be there in an advisory capacity, and it's basically continuity moving forward. But Danny does a little bit less stuff. So I don't know, but I don't know. I guess the coach will tell you a lot here, What's up, Nick?
Yeah. Doesn't the fact that the players have been completely mute,
that's what we said earlier,
for ball busting on Evan Turner, doesn't that bother? I mean, to me, that's just weird. And last night they knew. That's why Wick was in the locker room. They were told last night, and you could see it on Tatum's face in his post game. What's he gonna say? I mean,
he was so defensive, man. He just found out. Yeah.
2 minutes earlier. Yeah, I mean, and I just feel
I
like
agree with
Danny's
that
the fall
for
guy
sure.
in all this.
But right there.
And I will say this: that's a shame. Nice fall guy for the Celtics. I mean, bleeds green, but I'll say this: that the Celtics without Danny Ainge is just Bobby. You said it today. It's unthinkable. Like your whole lifetime, he's been involved in this franchise. My whole lifetime, for the most part. I mean, besides the '90s.
Yeah,
this
I remember.
Feels like he got traded to Sacramento all over again for Joe Klein.
Joe Klein.
And Eddie Pinckney, Easy Ed.
I loved Easy Ed. The reverse dunk.
That was a big deal. Huh?
So
hey guys, I'm not going
dunk,
anywhere.
Great offensive rebounder.
Don't freak. I'll be right back.
There he goes.
How's he gonna say it like that and then just disappear?
No, it's definitely Joe Sway.
The Ainge thing is interesting.
It was John. No.
The Ainge thing is interesting, Nick, in terms of
John.
In terms of his ability to connect with the players and get through to the players from his position. You heard the different comments about consulting players on certain things, and then the Athletic report of them taking his criticism the wrong way. You got to think that had to play some part in it too. Like I'm 40 years older than these guys. I've been doing this forever. Times have changed. Players react to people differently, and we just have different approaches here.
Think about it this way. You and me can disagree on so many different things basketball-wise because I'm 20 years older than you. He's 40 years older than them. I mean, I think the other side of it, I do have a neck. I have my shoulders up, guys. I'm
thinking of it almost in.
The other side of it too is
I'm thinking of
I'm sorry. He sang about, and we talked about this earlier with the massage tables. I can't get that out of my head because he said it in the Kyrie year too. How he struggled getting through to them because they don't speak; they only text. They don't celebrate wins. They're immediately on Twitter. I can't understand that. Could you, Joe Sway? I can't understand that.
Yeah, to a certain extent. Yeah, I mean, obviously, that there's a bit of a difference there.
No, but can you relate to it? Can you manage that?
Can
you manage that? You and I talked about it on management.
But
the fact
people
that your players
constantly on your phone.
They text each other when they're sitting right next to each other. Yeah, like instead of talking to one another.
Yeah, no, that would drive me crazy. And that's a big reason why I love the idea of someone like Chauncey Billups, because he had such obviously his career was he had to be who he become, but also the Detroit Pistons did, and how they were able to. Everyone knew their role. They were able to divvy up each other's role, and they empowered each other. I think a lot of those themes and sort of that Ubuntu vibe, Billups could incorporate that, and I think that's what proves that's a champion that can also relate.
Well, Nick, I think some of his methods got.
Nick ruined everything. Yo.
I think some of his.
I literally stopped talking because Nick is here.
What else is new?
I think some of his methods caught up to him. And just in terms of his approach, the ruthlessness, the openness, I think a lot of this stuff goes back to his pursuit of Anthony Davis in 2019. It's hard to not look at that situation and how players are floated out there. And then you had the whole reaction to the Isaiah trade and the ruthlessness of that. Ainge caught a lot of flack for his approach over the last handful of years. And that has to play some role in it in my mind too. There's just a different way that players go about things now, and the perception that the Celtics were ruthless or looked at players as assets and that certain people didn't want to come here for one reason or another is something that they were going to have to move past at some point, because they're going to have to adjust to the new NBA in some ways. The NBA that Nick hates, but again, how are you going to succeed by living in the past and your past ways and just trying to fight the change that's gone on in terms of how NBA players approach
Bobby,
the league now?
Nick, you messing up everybody.
You have boomer rage, Bobby.
You're messing up everyone's.
You have boomer rage. That's what happens.
Yeah.
No,
I heard half of what Bobby said.
I don't want to screw up.
And I blame Nick.
I could see it happening, but let me just sign off with this. Don't change the logo, because that's what's being talked today. Let's get somebody in here and let's start a new run. And Bobby, you're right. It's hard. It is hard. I can only imagine Danny Ainge, because I have a struggle with today's players. I struggle managing today's people. So I can understand that. But I do know this. Still have a great, if Danny's the fall guy, that means Brown and Tatum are not. And that's all I care about right now, because that's our future. That's the Celtics' future. And I would say Dudley? Brad doesn't have the balls to move either of them. So they're here.
Yeah. So just to let people know, we're going to migrate over to locker room in a little bit and let you guys talk. We're not going till 2 a.m. again, but there's a few of you guys. And again, we were up a while, and Dudley's right here. The people who are saying the thing about Kara being a woman, man, like those are the guys that
Stop it.
Yeah,
women. Just because women don't like you, put it out there.
Just shake your head.
Right.
Like people who think
it's
just because women don't
pull a lot of women. They don't pull a lot of women. Like, it's okay. You don't pull a lot of women. That's fine. Just say that.
It's
you're an idiot. Let me tell you something about women in management. Men back down to women in management. Usually, strong women will get people in line. John's shaking his head, but it's true, and it's a good thing.
I'm nervous what you're going to say. That's all.
No, I'm not going to say anything bad, because I don't blame you, but I am totally for Kara Lawson. I can't tell you how much I think that is the right move, both PR and basketball wise. And listen, the worst case, I agree. I don't blame you guys for being nervous. I could be a loose cannon, but my worst fear is that Brad is going to leave, and then Brad leaves, and then the Celtics have nobody.
Who's the face? Who's the decision maker of the Celtics? That's a huge question right now. I don't know what to expect from Brad as GM.
So much for being on tonight.
Good stuff, man.
I didn't know what to expect as coach. This past 3 years has been tough. Thank you, guys. Thanks. I'll see you in locker room. I don't want to glitch Joe's way out.
All right, take off. We're gonna head over to locker room in a few minutes anyway, and we'll just hear from you guys, because, like I said, Bobby and I went on earlier. I'll tell you my theory, my conspiracy. Oh, Nick.
How does he get out of here?
I just tossed him. I threw him out the club. So I'm not gonna do it. I'm not going to do it.
What are you going to say? What? Say it.
I don't buy. So what Bobby said, was
You
if this
got to
was a
do what the players want here. You
if
got to
no, but I'm
fold
just
to
saying
them.
I don't buy Danny was thinking about it the whole year. I believe at some point or another, Danny may or may not have stepped down. I think it was accelerated by the crap year. I think it may have even been accelerated by some things that may or may not, some things that might have gone down in the last few weeks or whatever. I believe this was more hastily thrown together than they are leading us to believe. And again,
If this was
I'm
a
going back
grand
to
plan,
yeah.
why do you extend Brad? Why do you make that trade deadline move
If you
unless it was
knew
really Brad's thing?
right. If Ainge was possibly within a year of leaving, and you knew that if you were to replace Ainge, you would replace him with Brad, like one could say that's why they extended him. I don't buy it. Like I'm going by. I cited on Twitter the Shaughnessy article from a couple of weeks ago, where Dan's asking him outright, are you coming back? Of course. Is Brad? Of course. The players, Jay and Jason? Of course. Great. Of course Danny could lie, and Danny has lied. I'm not saying that's beyond him. I'm saying every single thing we heard from Danny this year was Brad's coming back to coach this team. There's no other person we would rather have as coach. He's the best coach. The coach is not the problem. He's going to coach this team. Coach, 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 coach. There was no indication that he himself was leaving either. Okay, so yes, of course he could lie in one interview. That's not the point. Every radio interview, everything and every opportunity given to discuss what's going on next year, Brad is the coach. He's the best coach. We never have a better coach. I couldn't imagine having another coach. He's the best coach. Are you crazy? You can't do better. All about Brad as a coach. There's no idea about Brad's value to the organization or blah, blah, blah. It was, he's our coach. We couldn't imagine having anyone else coach. And a month later, Brad, the organization is better with Brad not being the coach. The organization is now better with Brad doing a job he's never done before. I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
He lost that locker room, John. How do you don't buy that? You don't think that this team stopped listening to Brad Stevens?
I think when Danny was endorsing Brad, he already had thought there was enough intel to tell you that the locker room may or may not have been lost, and he was still doing it.
You also could have started.
He was still doing it. Nothing here smells like this was truly a well thought out plan.
Yeah.
That could have been set into motion before you extended Brad. You know that Danny was all along leaving within this year or next, and Brad was always next to take it. No way. This really, like I said, Wick's comment was like, we were talking one day and we're like, what you think you could do it? Ha ha ha. And he was like, then that's how it came about. It really feels like it was like, I don't know. What about Brad? Sure. Yeah, let's do it. Brad, done. This wasn't part of the plan. This isn't Brad's dream job. Brad is a coach. In Danny's mind, Brad was always going to be the coach. Then all of a sudden, Danny's not here anymore and Brad has a different job.
But yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that. Is this move gonna work? That's the bigger question here. I think there's a chance it does, and that's where Joe Sway. We actually agree with you. I think is that Brad might have what it takes to be GM. I don't know what his philosophy is going to be. I don't know if he's going to be more aggressive than Ainge. I don't know if he's going to just try to be Ainge. I don't know if he's going to try to create the roster that he wants. So then all of a sudden he's going to really need a coach that's in line with his thinking. There's a million questions I have there in terms of how he's going to build a roster going forward. Because honestly, what worries me is that if he's not in it for the long haul, he's going to make some decisions with long-lasting implications here. So you have to have a guy in a GM role who's going to be willing to roll with what ends up happening 6-7 years down the line, because those are the decisions you're making in an offseason as he prepares to sign free agents, draft a guy, trade picks down the line. These are all things he's going to have to do unless he's just very conservative here, either because he's held down by money constraints or he doesn't want to make changes down the line that he might not be here for. It's just a very wide-ranging possibility in terms of what could end up coming out of a Stevens GM role.
And what's interesting to me is right now, and again, obviously you have a lot of people in media that like Brad a lot. And I know people have been critical of the media for not giving Brad enough heat, for whatever happened on the sidelines as the coach. there's a lot of people who respect his basketball acumen as well. And so I think even the people who thought Brad might not be a fit for this team really respect his, like I said, his basketball IQ, his basketball acumen. Everyone keeps talking about him as one of the smartest people they know, one of the best basketball minds. And so I think people are reluctant to say, are you freaking kidding me with this move? But the general vibe you're getting from a lot of the media is, yeah, Brad's pretty smart basketball guy, but are you kidding me? Like, this is the move? Like, what a gamble. What a gamble at a time you can't really make a gamble here. Like, there's no such thing as a sure thing. But what did we talk about? When you move on from something, you have to either be so certain that it's a disaster and you need the next thing, or that the thing you're getting after it is much, much better. This doesn't feel like either right now. It just feels like it's like happening, in a very scattershot way.
I feel like if they were to bring in a brand new GM, I think that's risky with how fragile things are right now. Like,
more risky than a guy who's never done the job before that may or may not want the job.
Yeah, what if Zarin becomes GM or something like that, and then Brad slides in the
it's like what Bobby said,
head coach.
It's like what Bobby said, and it's true. I mean, he would easily, if he was out the door, he could get a head coaching job elsewhere because he's regarded and he's
immediately. Yeah.
That's a quality head coach. Brown plays a big part in this, Whereas if you compare him to any other NBA coach, they don't really have that, or any collegiate.
I don't know.
It's a temporary fix. I get it, John. Like, in the long run, it doesn't.
It should not be temporary. You should not be looking for temporary fixes now when you're trying to rebuild a roster to be able to, make sure and ensure that you have Jalen and Jason here in the long term.
24 hours ago that there's not a whole lot of wiggle room with this roster, man. You're making it sound like there's a whole lot of options that these guys can go in.
Yeah, Brad, BGM, because we can't really do anything roster.
That's so that was my fear, and I said this in the early show.
You know better than anybody what the hell's going on in that locker room, compared to any other GM.
I said this in the early show, and this is my fear, is that Brad right now got reassigned to go in there and basically not sign Evan, not cost Wick a lot of money for hiring a new coach, not go into the tax, and just coach the kids, draft a couple more players, be the Brad that coaches up, that whatever, just bring in the young talent that you want there, and let's just kind of hold the line for a little bit until we're ready to make the next move. Then I'll go get my real GM and my real coach. I don't know. I mean, I wonder if it's a placeholder sort of gig here for Brad rather than a guy that they want into the future. So anyway, locker room is open. It's in the chat. We're going to head over there. We're all going to do it at the same time. Guys, any closing thoughts here before we head over?
Well, just to wrap that up, especially if Ainge moves on to a new job here,
it's going to be lit.
Then that becomes a real question, whether Ainge was just kind of done with the situation. The flexibility ran out. His hope to be able to remedy the situation, given the possible financial constraints, it just ran out. And that essentially just becomes upending being a mutual decision there. We want to move on from Ainge, and Ainge is just kind of done with this. And that's what is scary about the situation, because if this whole thing is financially motivated, and then by effect of that, they're not able to go into the tax at all here, it's going to be a really rough 2022, just swallowing your financial constraints and your inability to improve the roster at all, and dealing with much of what they did last year. Again, a new voice and a refreshing perspective and a different kind of head coach isn't solving roster issues. And this season, as much as Brad made some mistakes here or there, wasn't a Brad issue. It was a roster issue to a large degree.
I think everybody deserves a big heaping hunk of blame pie here, from the players not putting in effort, to Brad not doing his best coaching job, to Danny and where the roster was here, to Wick not willing to spend. I think every one of them everyone had a bad year. And so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens heading into the future. I think everyone had a bad year.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun, guys.
I just want somebody to check in on Jalen.
We're going to be here like every other week.
Just tell me if Jalen and Jason are okay.
I am excited about some of these coaching possibilities, though. the fact that they're essentially going to have their pick out of anybody is exciting here. There's some current head coaches that could get involved, Woj says. I like a lot of these lead candidates, Billups, Lawson, those type of people.
Well,
Lloyd Pierce and Jason Kidd would be tough to swallow, though.
Yeah. So I agree. Let's save it. We're going to get into the coaches a lot more as time goes on. More names are going to surface. We'll know there'll be interviews. We'll hear discussions. So let's wrap this up. We're going to locker room again. For those who have not done this with us before, head on in, download on the iOS, or you can also do Android now. If you do have it, make sure you've updated. I guess there was a recent update in there too. And join us on the stage. We're gonna hang for 30 minutes or so and hear from you guys. I know a lot of people were interested in chatting. So we've done a lot of talking. We want to hear what you guys have to say. So Nick's in there now holding court. I shouldn't have let the guy loose.
Oh man, we gotta go.
Yeah, so we gotta go. All right. we gotta go. We can't allow that. Thank you guys for hanging in there with us. I know it's a couple times. You're probably sick of listening to us talk. So hopefully you want to hang a little bit longer. Let's head to the locker room and chop it up.